I overbought. Welcome to part 10 of the 755 Followed Me Home project. In this episode, you'll see what happens when a guy with a 655, 755, and 955 hears of an 855 that may be available. Episode 9 ended with all the major components of the 755 engine being installed. Now we're ready for the next order of business. A year ago, in March 2022, I made a deal for a 755 and an 855 that were going to be parted out. In July, I picked them up, and like new toys, I had to unload them, give them a good look over, and determine a course of action. All right, it'll come back. Then attention shifted to 5 months taken up with knee replacements, some snow falling, and then dragging the tractors to warmer weather and the indoor shop on the family farm. Yes, I overbought. The original plan was to take this 755 engine from the blind date project and put it in this 755. Well, that may happen, but all of this time since buying that 855, I've wondered what happened to throw that connecting rod out through the block. So here's the plan. We're going to pull the engine, find out what parts can be reused, build a new engine, and drive it out of here. All kidding aside, a retired guy with 5 bypasses and 2 new knees doesn't need a 6, 7, 8, and a 955 tractor to keep batteries in and find a place to store them inside. But messing around with these tractors is therapy. They give me something to think and talk about, and I suppose they've become a hobby. In the case of these latest acquisitions, I would argue that reconditioning adds more long-term value than what can be attained by parting them out. Reconditioning replaces or repairs failed components and makes the tractors whole again. Salvaging has the opposite effect of reducing the supply of useful tractors and increases the demand for some of their common parts. This results in higher part prices and leads to fewer tractors in the market. Therefore, a reconditioned tractor can go to work and stimulate the aftermarket to supply popular and hard-to-find parts. So where does any long-term value added come from? I believe the 55s are poised to become classics. Their prices are stable, they're easy to maintain and repair, and the engines and systems are simple. They share most common features with new models, and they're becoming more popular, as witnessed by numerous videos and a series-specific online forum. By keeping the 55s alive, a new retro market will exist for folks who want a dependable, compact tractor and who appreciate the style and simplicity of the classic 55 compact utility series. Whether I'm right or wrong, maintaining a 55 is just good business. The case in point, this 655 has been a part of the family since 1986. It's small and compact, doesn't have a loader or correct battery, and is perfect for maneuvering tractors around in the shop. Well, this is my 1986 655, bought it new. And I'm going to use it to help move things around, moving these tractors around. And as far as I know, this tractor has not been started since at least the summer of 2014, and this is the middle of March in 2023. So let's see what happens. We'll wait for the glow plugs to go off. If they do. I'll hit it with a little bit more power. Let's try it. This brings up the fact that it appears I'm jumping from one project to another. Yes, I am, sort of. The blind date is rough. The radiator is at a shop being rebuilt. It has ag tires, and right now, I don't have a use for it. The idea was that once it was back together, I could sell the 955 and use the 755 around the farm. Regardless, I expect to get back to the blind date off and on while the 855 block is being machined. Spring is almost here, and maybe someone will want one of these old girls, so the sooner I can get some hours on the new engines, the better. From the looks of things, the previous owner wanted to keep this tractor. He took care to replace bolts, upgraded lighting, and the tractor really looks good. The paint on the hood appears to be original. The only thing is, something went horribly wrong. We're going to find out what. As I dig into this thing, I want to observe the state of the systems when it came apart. Basically, I want to find out what went wrong. Was it an assembly or mechanical problem, or did the operator do something that contributed to the failure? It's time to find out. With side panels, grille, and hood out of the way, actual engine removal begins by simply removing the oil cooler, fuel tank, and radiator. As seen in the 755 blind date video, the oil cooler lines restricted removal, so I thought I'd outsmart the manual by leaving the cooler installed. If you want to watch that train wreck, it's at the beginning of episode 3. Staged to repeat the same folly, I began removing the 855 engine by thinking I could remove the fuel tank first.
Well, to get the fuel tank out, I want to make some room here for these hoses. So I'm going to pull the wires and the hoses off. The brown wire, it looks like brown with a white stripe, goes to the tractor left, and the all black wire goes to the tractor right. And we've got these clamps, spring clamps. Now that one's kind of loose. That was pretty easy. Here. I'll see if I can bring this hose down and put it in this container. Any fuel that comes out. Not much, but we'll leave that there for now. Snake this line out. And since this is the main fuel supply line to the pump, this one is just dripping. I'm going to see if it's fairly dry. Let's see if anything comes out of this one. About the same. So both of those lines are held. Actually, removing this oil cooler, or getting it loose and getting the radiator out, and getting the radiator out has been one of the main concerns about getting this engine overhauled or replaced. Somebody's been here before. Here's a green bolt that shouldn't be in the oil cooler. So what I'm going to do is take this oil cooler mounting out and see if the cooler can come up a little bit to allow room for the tank to come up. Bolt was too long, wrong bolt for this spot. So now let's get the screen out.
The plan was to wrestle the cooler out of the radiator's claws and worry about putting it back together later. I learned my lesson, but not before trying it my way. The lesson learned? Follow the manual and remove the oil cooler first. It's possible.
I've tried everything else. It still has to go back together. So what I'm going to do is follow the manual. It says break these lines. I'll catch some of the oil here. The rest of it will go into the kitty litter on the floor. I found I didn't have a 23 and a 24 millimeter end wrench, but a 15/16 will fit the line, and a 7/8 will fit the cooler. So, see if we can break her loose. No, pretty tight. Tight enough. The idea is going to be then to take the front line loose, and let's hope it'll move far enough out of the way that we can get the wrenches on the back side. You want to be careful not bending these lines because they've got to line up perfectly to be connected again. Well, maybe this thing has sat long enough, the oil is all drained back. Alright, let's see if we can get the tools in without bending that line. Top wrench I can, and the bottom wrench. Okay, so here we go. Got to hold your mouth just right. Popped loose. Alright. Still hung up. So I'm pushing the radiator back, slipping this bracket on the other side ahead of the radiator. And there we get her out. One oil cooler. I wiggle the fuel tank, and with the weight, it's just not wanting to come out from under the radiator, so we're going to pull the radiator. Next, we remove the fan shroud from the radiator. The breather tube has got to come off eventually, so let's see if it will come on and get out of our way. No, we'll take it off with the valve cover. So the next thing would be the lower radiator hose. I'm going to break it loose at the water pump. Just leave it attached to the bottom of the radiator for right now, so I don't risk any problems getting that off of the bottom outlet. Before the radiator can come off of the frame, we have to get the hoses and this insulator out. So let's get the wiring harness out of our way. Wiring harness to the fuel tank out of the way. These lines have
run empty. Well, that breather tube is kind of in our way. We'll keep going, see what we can do. We can get them down far enough. Get the tube out of the way. It was pretty brittle and I didn't want to break it and have to buy another one. I noticed that the lower radiator hose is going to be in the way if we try to raise the radiator there. So I'll see if I can break it loose. Maybe that's what the guys before did, and it'll come off easier. Oh yeah. Yeah, they've been here before. Sounds like there's a little fluid in it. Well, it's going to have to go on the floor because I can't get the bucket under it.
So why do we want to get the fuel tank out? Well, the main reason is to provide simpler access to the engine mounting bolts. They're hard to find back up in there, and it's just as easy with the oil cooler and the radiator out of the way to lift the fuel tank out. Had a bit of a problem there. The memory card filled up, so we'll continue with removing the tank. With the fuel tank, oil cooler, and radiator out of the way, we can turn our attention to the pedestal and the firewall. On the tractor's right side, there's 6 cap screws, at least on the 855. Battery box is held in by 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Unfortunately, what we have going on right now are 10 millimeters that hold in the front, and an 11 and an 11 that are holding the back of the battery case. I really don't like these screw-on types of battery cable connections, but that's not an urgent matter right now. We might change that cable out later. So these 2 bolts at the front also hold the firewall. I don't know if those have been off of there in a while. Well, found a different problem. These bolts are not original. They're 11 millimeter, have a lock nut on the back side. Slide it forward and it comes out. Starting aid modules are held in with 8 millimeter bolt with a lock nut. Put that guy back on there if I can so we don't lose it. The negative battery cable runs through the firewall down to an engine mount. Conveniently, it's a 9/16 on the back.
And 13 if I need it, it looks like, in here. And now we can maneuver the ground cable out along with the firewall. And set it up on the dashboard so it's out of the way. The muffler heat shield is held in with two 10mm cat screws. And it's easily removed because they have cutouts there for the cables. How convenient. I'd like to get this exhaust pipe off of here. And those bolts are really rusted in there. You know what? I don't think I really care. See what happens. Well, that one's coming loose. When I get in a situation like this, if I can get a nut a little bit loose, I'll put some penetrating oil down there and tighten her back up, trying to get a little bit more of the material back into those threads. It looks like I've got some there. So we'll try loosening it again. Often it's a lot easier to spend the time chasing these guys down this way than it is drilling something out. And I don't really care if this bolt twists off. Did you see this pipe? Sorry for the shaky hand movement, but we're after that bolt right there. It's 12mm, and it holds the bracket that holds the U-bolt for the exhaust pipe. Well, that was a good idea, but everything's pretty tight yet, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can loosen up this U-bolt. There's her clamp with a 14. I'm sorry, it's hard to hold the camera in this situation. But those bolts have not been there very long. That's either good news or bad news that the engine blew up. This next scene could get ugly. Oh, that's not too bad yet. Well, there we have it. We'll have to wait to take it out after we get the muffler out. How's my hair? Is it all right? Well, with the sheet metal out of the way, we have better and clear access to this engine. The only thing remaining is the plumbing and the electrical, the power shaft, and 4 bolts that hold the engine down to the mounts. So I think this is a time to take a break. I'll start editing so I can get this line posted, and we'll get back to you soon.